Welcome to LOA Today. I'm Walt Thiessen.
With me today is life coach and LOA teacher Joel Elston.
This is your Daily Dose of Happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And this is your Daily Dose of Happy, but today this is also my Daily Dose of Happy. I really need it today. Longtime listeners will know that I have a cat named Joy who is totally the joy of my life. Well, I'm sad to report he is no longer with me in this plane of existence. He passed away this past Friday from kidney failure, and it was, as listeners might imagine, it was a pretty brutal week to live through. But I'm hoping to do this conversation with you today, Joel, to kind of celebrate his life, but more importantly, do what we normally do, which is to talk about all the different ways that we deal with life's challenges and turn them into assets. Because that's really what the Daily Dose of Happy is all about. So today, Joel, we're not just doing it for listeners, we're doing it for me. I need my Daily Dose of Happy today.
Well, I'm glad to be here for you, my friend. I don't even know what to say in these situations other than, what an amazing family member you had in Joy. We've talked about Joy a lot. Joy's been around the entire time I've known you.
That's right.
Yeah, and made several appearances on our show.
Yeah, he was good at that too. Yeah, usually when he was most hungry.
Absolutely, and would usually time that like right during our show for some reason.
Absolutely, yeah.
Yeah. So it was great. So I'm very sorry for your loss, and losing a pet, losing whatever you want to call that. I really believe they're in your family. They're not separate from. They're equal to family members in my life. And I love also what you said. This plane of existence, energy doesn't die, no. And incredible energy like Joy's continues, and that's a belief I really have. So,
I agree with you. It's interesting when you're going through. Interesting is probably the wrong word. It's horrible to go through what I had to go through, but when you're going through it, you know of what all your beliefs are, but none of them make any sense to you because you're dealing with something that is just impossible. That's the way it feels like there's got to be a way out of this. There's got to be a way to solve this. There's got to be, because that's what I was. I was his caregiver as well as his friend. And I mean, I had helped him before. He'd been attacked, and I would get him medical help to have surgeries and abscesses removed and things like that. And I couldn't fix it. There was nothing. I did everything I knew how to do. I performed Reiki on him. I mean, actually, Joel, for the last week, I mean, you didn't know this. I didn't tell you about this before we got going. I told you, I gave you an idea of what happened, but I didn't tell you this piece. The last week of his life, I literally spent every day with him all day long. Most of the day he was in my lap. Most of the day I'm doing Reiki on him. And I kind of calculated out. I think I gave him about 30 hours of lap time over a 3-day period.
Wow.
I mean, just massive amounts. And probably 3/4 of that I was doing Reiki on him. So I was just giving him massive amounts of energy to help ease him. And I do know it worked. I mean, he was in really bad straits. He was just suffering a lot. And every time that I did give him the attention, do the Reiki work and so forth, he calmed right down every single time and stayed calm for hours at a time.
Wow.
So yeah, it was quite the experience.
It was. You did everything a human could do. And, and that's an honor to the relationship we had with Joey.
Yeah. And I miss him greatly, and I wish he was still here that I could give him a kiss, but he's not.
He's not.
So
I'm so sorry.
Thank you. Today's topic is actually somewhat related because Jen titled it "Ready is not a feeling." That's from a TikTok you said that you posted. Yes. And I would turn around that my feeling was that I was not ready, but that's essentially like the mirror image of what you were saying.
Yeah, it was a little different context, but it sure is applicable. So
yeah, right. So let's talk a little bit about what the original post was about. That if you can kind of flip the whole topic around here.
Well, the concept of the being ready is like you're going to wait till you're ready for something to happen. The idea that a lot of people wait for things to be perfect conditions to act. The feeling of being ready I've really never been ready for anything, and learning to understand that and just being able to take and move forward without the feeling that you're ready. Ready is a decision. It's not
Mm.
a it's not a feeling, and that's a really important distinguishing factor for me, because I see so many people get stuck in the cycles of, when the new year starts, I will do this, or these
Mm.
conditions of, when this gets better, I will do this, and that's how you get stuck in cycles. When you keep waiting for the perceived perfect conditions for something to happen, for you to be able to take action, they never come, and that's why people get stuck for years in the same cycle instead of just having the ability to move forward. So it gets into the more of the fact of the action mindset, which, as you know, is sort of my trademark kind of concept,
Mm.
versus this idea that we're going to be ready. I was not ready to start my private practice when I did in 2012. I wasn't ready, but I did, and I was able to, with comically unprepared, by the way, and it didn't even know remotely what I was doing, but it worked. And but there's so many things in my life have gone that way, and I just learned to embrace the action step instead of waiting for the or understanding that the conditions are never going to be perfect for me to move forward. I have a friend that was, it's ironic, him and his wife years ago were, they kept waiting financially to have a kid. Like,
Mm.
we're waiting to have a kid.
Right.
And, I kept saying, okay, but, well, and so nature decided they were ready. He wasn't. And so nature also had another plot twist. It was triplets.
Wow. Oh my goodness.
So they got pregnant. They were like happy. Then they found it was triplets, and he was like, "Oh my god!" So the idea that he was never going to be prepared for triplets, but that's been years ago. Very successful. The kids are probably 15 now and thriving. Just the normal 15-year-olds, things are good. But he was never going to be ready for triplets. Who's ready for triplets?
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, well, he had to be 3 times as ready for something that he wasn't ready for.
Exactly. That's
And
like
that's the challenge.
yeah. Exactly, but that's going to be in life. The unexpected job loss, being ready for, unexpected tragedy, being ready for those things are never. You might think you're prepared, but you're when they happen, you realize that you're not ready for them. But your decision to act and your perspective of it is where your power exists.
I,
So
I wasn't going to tie it back, but I'm going to tie it back. That's literally what I was facing when I was dealing with the question of, can I help Joy get out of his misery?
yeah,
Can I put him to sleep? And I was just absolutely locked up on that one.
yeah,
I just totally locked up. It was actually my ex-wife Louise who helped me through it, and
yes.
she literally just walked me through how I was thinking about it to get to the point where I could finally make the decision. And I'm very grateful to her for that. She was
Well,
really, really there for me in this. But the challenge when you're dealing with all this is you're never ready. You can't be ready.
no, like that, and that's the the belief system or understanding how all this works in life. The things that happen, life happens unexpectedly. There's plot twists. There's loss. There's victory. There's all kind of things that happen. You don't, and you're really out of control. It's your response to them. Learning to be ready, it is a decision. When like, okay, here I am. I'm ready to go, and I'm not going to wait a month to take action. When everything fell apart for me, 30 years ago,
Mm.
I didn't have a lot of choice about being ready. It's like, I got to get to work, or I'm gonna, there wasn't a lot of options for me at that point. So just accepting that's where I'm at, and taking, you and I talked about this a few weeks ago. Just I had the gift of no choice. I
Mm.
had, like, there was only one choice, so I was going to be ready or not, but that's what I had,
Yeah.
and that led to other things. So it really is helping people understand this process of change of perspective, of the decision of being ready lies with you at any point in time. The emotion or feeling ready is something that you'll wait around for, that'll never happen.
And yet when the time comes, whatever it is that you're struggling with, um, when that time comes, even though you're not ready, you kind of have to deal with it anyway. You don't
We
really, I mean, it's not like you have a choice. The only
well,
thing you do have a choice about is how are you going to respond to it, like you said?
Right. But that's in life happens that way. And, that the idea that life happens as I said, with plot twist and having to deal with then. So the ready mindset comes from here we are. The reminding myself, this is what's in my control. This is my options right now. I didn't want this to be thrust upon me right now, but here I am. So that's really sort of becomes one of the life hacks that it gets right under the category of the things in your direct control. Your response to an event is it doesn't require you to be ready. It just requires you to take action, and action, then you just sort of declare yourself ready at some point.
Mm.
I'm always ready. I'm always ready for a twist. I'm always ready. That's just sort of how I function. And being ready is not something that over a year ago is when I decided to sell my house randomly one night.
Right.
Just wasn't ready. I just said, it's time. I need something to shake me up, and I did.
Would you say, I'm kind of curious what your take is on this, because especially having gone through what I went through the last week, there was no way to be ready for what happened.
Right.
It was not possible. It was not within the realm of possibility to be ready
Right.
for. Is it possible that ready isn't actually part of the equation? We make it part of it. We think that we have to be ready, or that it's important to be ready. But is it possible that ready actually doesn't play a significant role in the whole
It doesn't
place?
play any role, I don't think. I think you mentally then you declare yourself ready when you have no other option, but you're in the middle of action at that point. When something happens, you're dealing with it. So I think it's just a phrase we use. You weren't ready for that. Who's ready for any of this stuff, really?
Yeah.
It's the plot twist in life. There's a company here in the Richmond area that for the last several years has been hiring like crazy, and I think it's called CoStar, and they built huge downtown offices, and they pay better than anybody else in town. They were just hiring constantly. A lot of people left good jobs to go there, and all of a sudden, about a month ago, they said now they started their layoffs, and they just they weren't ready. I wasn't ready. I mean, right before Christmas, I think it was when it was going on, and they weren't ready. It's like, no, you just got thrust out of a job that you just were recently hired to, thinking this was something that was going to be long term. And so you can never, ready is just an event, a mindset, I guess, but it doesn't have any real equation on the outcome. Ready or not is sort of it's a statement. A kid state, ready or not, here I come. Well, ready or not, life's happening, whether you're ready or not. So you can mentally go, okay, now I'm ready. But I think that's more of a perspective adjustment than anything else. Because the only thing that matters in situations is the action you take or the action you don't take.
Something is tickling the back of my mind right now as we're talking about this. This whole concept of being ready while you're never really ready. And we were just talking about how what you really have is the choice of how you're going to respond. And that makes me think about the word responsible, which the way I usually break it down, I mean, this isn't a pure way of how it's actually broken down etymologically, but it's able to respond. Responsible is able to respond. Yeah. So a responsibility is having the opportunity and the duty to respond to what it is that's going on. That's kind of a different take on the word responsibility. We often think of a responsibility as something that, oh, well, you have this responsibility because society gives it to you, or your parents give it to you, or your teacher, or something like that. But we're talking about having the responsibility of deciding how to respond, which is not the way it's usually presented.
Right. Or also deciding not to respond. I mean, the within the response is what the decision you make, and that's all tied together. A lack of a decision is a decision unto itself. So at some point, being ready or not being ready, that's or having the ability to respond. Every event that takes place sends you in a direction. Now, you do get to choose some of those directions, but as you go forward, you're sort of limited to what is right in front of you. But your response remains in your complete control. But when you're limited in what's going forward, then in my case, I said earlier, I was blessed with a gift of just only having one option way back in the day. So my response was, obvious. It was just there. It was simple. I can't imagine, because if I'd have had 5 choices, I'd have picked the wrong one, guaranteed. Because I'd have the one that was available was not a good one, but it was the only one available.
It also makes me realize too that responsibility is more about being willing to respond, being willing to take, even if it's just one option, taking it. I mean, 'cause you actually had 2 options. You could either take it, or you could just, go by default, just giving up, saying,
Yep.
I don't choose anything.
Yep.
But you chose to take the one option that came your way. It wasn't a good one at all, but you chose the one. I mean,
Yep.
last week, I was narrowed down to one option, literally one, and it was an option I absolutely did not want to take at all under any circumstance.
Yes.
I could have tried to just refuse to take it, just refuse to respond. I'm really glad I didn't.
Me too, because a lack of response from you would have been very devastating and painful.
Much more painful.
Much more painful. to
What
watch
I
what
went
would
through
have
was extremely painful, but that would have been much worse.
much worse. And so that, and that's where you got to look at the life, the way life functions, where you're getting back to the sort of the stoic concept of, it's always in the, how you choose to frame something, how you see it is always the point of everything. Horrible things happen all the time, and great things happen all the time. Sometimes the horrible things happen to put you in front of the next great thing. I believe
that's the crazy one. I mean, we talked about that one for years.
Yes.
And to this day, that still like knocks me for a loop. Like,
Yes.
how on earth does something that's really terrible lead to something great? But it does so often.
It does. It does. One of the analogies that I like is, we see a devastating forest fire. It comes through and it wipes out this, beautiful forest, and it is devastating to the animals for a while, but in 6 months or a year, it's more lush. It cleans out the underbrush, and the trees grow stronger, and the healing process actually cleansed you see stuff like that all the time in nature as an example. And the cleaning out of, on Anna Maria Island a few years ago, they had those two hurricanes back to back.
Right.
And
right.
one thing it destroyed a lot of places on the island.
Yep.
But the sea oats and all the plants and the trees, it blew all the leaves off. It looked like the bomb went off. And one thing that I noticed was Florida is full of lizards, and that island in particular, we always had those little lizards. They're harmless, but they were everywhere. And I was there after the storm, and there were hardly any lizards. It was just wild. The big ones were all gone. It looked like some of the babies were eggs. Then a year later, I went down. The lizard population was gigantic again.
It exploded. Yeah.
It exploded. And so nature sort of has that. Nature is really never ready for what happens, but it's always ready with a response.
Which is an interesting concept. On the one hand, it's not ready. On the other hand, it's abundantly ready.
Yeah,
at the same moment. I mean, it's not like it's 2 different moments going on there.
Oh yeah, yeah. It's almost as if in nature, it's just part of that cycle, the destruction and the rebuilding, and the volcanoes going off in Hawaii, all that's involved. I mean, that's a destruction. Then it turns into additional islands, even additional land at times. And it's just this amazing way that the earth sort of sets an example. But as humans, being life has those versions of storms. I believe we have that same internal stuff going on for us. Moving to another situation, losing a job, losing a loved one is never a good thing, but at the same time, it requires something different. And you see the world in a way that where you start looking at, where is my power? My power exists in my response.
The topic comes from the post that you posted. I think you said on TikTok, ready is not a feeling. But it also occurs to me, the thing that we're trying to get ready for, there's almost always a feeling associated with it. In fact, it's probably fair to say there is always 100% of the time a feeling associated with it. So the readiness itself may not be the feeling, but the feeling is always there. And sometimes, especially if it's tragic, the feeling can be absolutely brutal. So I guess the next question becomes, if you're in the midst of making a decision, whether it's a decision where there's just one option or you have multiple options, either way, and regardless of whether it's a situation where there are positives or negatives coming out of it, you still have to deal with the feelings, good or bad, whatever they might be. So let's talk about that piece for a bit, because one of the things that you can see in your own mind, perhaps, if you see a phrase like ready is not a feeling, is, well, that means I really should not have feelings. I should suppress the feelings. I should pretend they're not there. I should, sweep them away and treat them as unimportant. Well, they're not unimportant. It's just that they don't fit into the concept of being ready. So how do we handle the feelings? What's the way to do it?
Well, everything is a great point, by the way. So I sort of see it differently. That post wasn't intended to say there's no emotion involved. It's saying that the act of being ready is not something you're going to ever really be prepared for or feel.
That's right.
But there's always feelings around everything.
Yeah.
So, and also that's a perspective based. So I've used this example a few times, but over the years, a little different context, and I've used it before. But I had an interesting thing happen years ago. I had two clients, different parts of the country, had no connection whatsoever, but they had something very similar happen, and their response was interesting. So both of these were single males, professionals doing well. They each owned their own home.
Okay.
They're very successful, and so they were going on in life, and again, set years apart, no connection. But one of them lived in Florida. Their house was hit by lightning, burned to the ground. The other had a faulty something in the electrical circuit. It burned to the ground.
Wow.
So both of them lost absolutely everything. It just, there was nothing left their possession. No pets died. There was none of that. So there was no loss of family life or anything like that. Just a loss of absolutely everything.
All the possessions, right? Okay.
Yeah. So one of the response was the guy's like very traumatized, in therapy, on a bunch of medication, post-traumatic stress syndrome. The other one was like, are you kidding me? They just gave me a $700,000 check. I can go anywhere in the world I want to go. Are you kidding? He viewed it as nature's greatest gift to him. That he said, I've got stagnant. This gives me a new opportunity. He decided to relocate, got a new job. He changed his life. The other one was traumatized by it. I'm not making fun of him. I'm just saying neither one of them were ready for their house to burn down.
That's right.
But they came up with different responses to their house burning down. And it is based on their personality. I'd be the guy like, yeah, oh my goodness, are you kidding me? Thank goodness the house burned down. He's like, man, I netted all this money. I could have never sold it for that amount of money. He had a list of all the great financial windfall he had in new opportunity. And the other ones in therapy having nightmares. Neither one of them were home, so that it isn't like they had to get out of the fire. So it was this interesting response. So yes, there's feelings that are going to be attached, but as with anything, it's your perspective of whatever the event is that determines your feelings of that. It could be the same thing in totally opposite perspective based on the individual.
As you were saying that, one thing that occurs to me is I have, in many times in the past, talked about how we get to select the feelings that we choose to associate with whatever happens. And I do believe that that's true. But I also know from what I went through last week, I could not have in my wildest imagination figured out any other way to respond in the way I did. I was locked into one particular response.
Sure. Yeah.
And so the question I raise is, well, how do I rationalize that? How do I rationalize the fact that on the one hand, I really couldn't have had any other response at that other time, at that particular time. And yet I also believe that we do have the opportunity to choose how we're going to respond. And the way that I rationalize it in my own mind is, I may not have the opportunity to make the choice at the time that's happening.
Right.
But over time, I think we all change the way that we think about something. In
Well,
fact, when we don't change the way we think about it, that we get locked in. That's where you get into that traumatic situation where you're in therapy, you're trying to work stuff through because you aren't letting go and you aren't saying, I can look at this a different way.
yes, you nailed it. So let's, particularly when it comes to family, loss of family,
Mm,
loved ones.
right.
Let's start with that. So there's no rational thought. When my son passed away, I'm not suggesting philosophical Joel was walking around immediately.
Impossible. Yeah.
I was destroyed. I
Yeah.
I had a month of I had nothing.
Yeah.
I didn't care. I didn't. There's no way to describe that.
Yeah.
So when you're dealing with that, you don't. There's no choice in my then at that point. Nothing would have helped me other than me doing what I do. I worked out,
Mhm.
went home, worked out, worked home. That's it. Back and
Boy,
forth,
that
back
was
and
the
forth.
whole routine. Yeah.
Sometimes I went to the gym 3 times a day. That was my
Really?
coping.
Wow.
I
Okay.
didn't talk to people at the gym. Everybody knew what happened. They were nodded. Nobody said a word to me. They knew that's how I needed it, and that's how I did it. So let's look at that. We can't look at choice within those incredibly disastrous emotional moments.
I want to touch on what you're saying here too, because it also ties into what I experienced last week in kind of an unusual way, a way that you might not think about. You were dealing with the tragedy as it affected you last week, and I don't want to get too much into the details because it gets kind of gruesome. But my cat was doing very much the same thing with his own experience,
Sure.
because in the last day or so of his life before we had to take the final action, he was literally in a place where he was trying so desperately to survive. He couldn't eat food. He hadn't eaten food in quite a few days. He had gotten to the point where he couldn't even drink water. And I had water set up I had water stations all over the place so he could, have it very nearby. He went through a thing where he would cycle from one to the next, trying to drink from the water, couldn't drink from it, put his paw into it, trying to like scoop the water out, still couldn't drink it. Then he'd go to the next one and repeat the same pattern over and over and over again. He was struggling so hard trying to find a way to save himself, and he couldn't do it. And I mean, that's torture.
Yeah.
He wasn't trying to torture himself. He was trying to survive.
Sure. Well, the survival instinct exists. Yeah.
It's very powerful. Yeah.
Yes.
But it also illustrates how this patterning that we get into can work for us or it can work against us.
Absolutely.
And so that's where the challenges really come in. How do we deal with those situations that happen? I mean, in your case, you were dealing with a horrific situation of your son having passed unexpectedly and horribly and tragically and so forth. And so you were using going to the gym as a repetitive way because it was safe. It was reliable. You found comfort in it. And by the way, my cat did the same thing. Even when he couldn't drink, there was one thing he could do that would give him some comfort. That was to come sit in my lap.
Yes.
So he'd wear himself out going from station to station to station. And then when he ran out of energy, which toward the end he didn't have a lot left anyway, he would come to me and he'd sit in my lap and I would calm him and I would pet him and I would just help him go to sleep in my lap, essentially. So it was the same thing in that both you and he were trying to find a place to rebalance, trying to find a place that would give you a sense of normalcy, a sense of normality and comfort, and like, I can get through this. And when you were telling your story, it's not really the same thing, but that's the association that came to my mind.
Yeah. Well, it's you do what, and it, I don't know. I mean, probably wouldn't apply to most people, but I knew for me, sitting at home just sulking and crying all day was not something that I could endure much.
Right.
So going to the gym, exhausting myself, I don't take drugs, I don't drink, I don't do any of that. So I wasn't going to be, in fact, a doctor friend of mine offered me Xanax. He said, this is horrible. He said, if you need some Xanax to help you sleep, I'll call that in. And I told him, no, I need to feel this. And I said, I appreciate it, but that's not how I do things. And so I exhausted myself at the gym, and as time went on, then, what I did with it is getting through that initial month or two. then as I started gaining my momentum back a little bit, understanding who my son TJ was, what he would expect of me, and I decided at that point that he would expect he would be furious that I took a month anyway. He would have thought that was the stupidest thing on the planet, and I decided I'm just going to he was super resilient. We supported each other, and all those kind of things, and he would expect me to go harder at everything, and I decided to work harder, to work out harder, and just go that next level, and I did. And I was successful before, but my greatest success came in the times after he passed away, because I was relentless. I am relentless still. That's a mindset that I derived from that.
So there's an example of what you mentioned before, what we were both talking about before, how you can go through a tremendous tragedy and end up with an incredible result at the end of it.
Yes.
Which is still mind-boggling. I mean, even if as I'm saying that right now, that sounds impossible, and yet there's another example of it.
It is, and I need to be really clear. I know you know this, but there's never a story where I think my son dying is good. There's never.
No, of course not.
You'll never hear, oh, well, I've got better because no, I would give everything. I'd give every penny I have right now to see him again. So there's no,
of course, yeah.
There's no indication that was a good thing. But once I got past that and that initial ungodly grieving process, then I started realizing, what am I going to do with this? How am I going to channel this? Because his personality and my personality, I became more intense, and I studied harder, got more degrees, worked harder, went to the gym harder, ended up adopting another child. I mean, I went next level on everything, and it was something that I really attribute to my response to his death after the grieving process.
I'm curious to see what you're going to say on this. I think I know what your answer is going to be, but I'm curious anyway. I mean, we both have similar beliefs in terms of we all come from energy. We go back to energy. We are continuous. We don't. Death isn't the end. It's just one more step in an eternal journey, and so on and so forth. Along with that is the implication that many people believe in. I certainly believe in it. I suspect you do. That once we move back into the pure energy realm, we still associate with those we left behind in the physical realm. Absolutely. So I'm wondering, do you think TJ in pure physical lives vicariously through your extra decision to dive in even harder, to work harder, to push harder? Do you think he actually experiences that vicariously?
I believe that all in my heart. I really do. I really do. I think that's, in fact, one of the things that I was amazed at losing a child is the number of people that had commentary on how I grieve. Sometimes it was pretty critical. So when I make the statement that I have two people to live for now in my mindset, so I have to work 2 times as hard, people thought that was an unhealthy response from me.
Really?
They don't know me well, obviously, but
well, they don't know human psychology very well, but we won't go there.
Yeah, but well, there is a people like just their response was that you can relax, you don't have to punish yourself. I'm going, I'm not. You don't understand my personality.
No, I understand where they're coming from, because if you were beating yourself up, that would certainly make sense. But that's not what you were doing.
I don't beat myself up with it. This is what I do for me, and so going harder at the stuff that mattered. These are things TJ cared about too. And so I feel that, until I take my last breath, whenever that's going to be, I just keep doing what in my mind, what he would expect me to do and what I expect of myself. And there's that I do feel like I talk to him all the time. I tell him jokes.
Do you really? You tell him jokes?
Yeah, all the time. Yeah.
That's fabulous.
Yeah. I mean, he had a weird sense of humor like mine. And so, I mean, I will give commentary on just what's happening in the world sometimes. And,
I'm curious, did TJ have a particular laugh? Did he laugh at all? I'm not sure what his behavior was.
He laughed at the weirdest things, and he my favorite connection with TJ and what made our relationship, because you know me pretty well. TJ did not initially understand sarcasm.
Okay. Yes, I think you told me that. Yes.
Yeah. and I don't have a language other than sarcasm.
Yeah,
So,
that's pretty much it.
so, so we had the most hilarious interactions when he didn't get, and then finally he got to a point of, okay, I think you're being sarcastic, and I said yes, and then he got to a point where he started to understand it and use it himself. So
Okay.
yeah, but it was this hilarious tool, and because he's the one I use the line on. He goes, I forget whatever we were talking about, and I go, I'm really good at sarcasm, and he goes, I don't know if that's something you'd be good at, Dad. And I go, I won the sarcastic championship 4 years in a row in Munich. And he goes, really? Yeah.
Oh, that's great. I love
So yeah, so we had those kind of things going. So within all of this, it's our response to it, and that's sort of everything with life. Your perspective. I use that term every week. When we talk, it's about everything's going to be perspective based. The grieving process is something I believe in. You own it, you feel it, you don't hide from it, you don't hide from the emotions. If I didn't try to stuff my emotions. I knew I had to feel it.
it.
And I had to literally, I wasn't suicidal, but I just sort of I just had to get to the bedtime during that time. I had to work
Uh-huh.
out, had to remember to eat food, and drink plenty of water, work out, and my friends were amazing because I'm someone that needed to go through that pretty much on my own.
Mm.
And most people understood that.
Mhm.
And I said, I'm not in danger. I just got to go through this. And,
Mhm.
I appreciated everybody that reached out. And I mean, thousands of people reached out.
Mhm.
My friends from Russia reached out.
Wow.
Uh, and it was all that was wonderful, but I knew I had to go walk that path myself.
Yeah.
And that's been, he passed away. In fact, TJ's birthday was Sunday,
Oh, really?
28th. Yeah, he would have been 35,
Okay.
which is mind boggling to me.
Yeah.
I don't have a world where I can envision him at 35.
What do you think he would have been doing at this point? Do you have any idea?
He was working in the trades. He had become an electrician and a welder, two
Okay.
separate things. And
Okay.
so we're talking about sort of that, like my plan for my son Justin is once he got fully going, we were going to open up his own company
Oh,
and
okay.
do that. So I would assume, and life has a way of changing, but we would be doing something like that.
It would fit actually, just from what I know about you. I mean, you would make an excellent entrepreneurial mentor to him because of your own experience with it. So it makes a lot of sense to me. He'd be running a business. He'd be running it differently from the way everybody else in the field does it, and he'd be doing it successfully.
Absolutely, and my goal. Anytime that I'm a big fan of the trades, as you know, I'm not suggesting people go learn how to be a plumber and do that for 50 years. I
Mhm.
want you to learn how to be a plumber, build your company, and hire other plumbers and bring them
Yeah.
along, and you manage it and then you have a wildly successful company. You should never, in my mind, you don't need to be 35 out in the field. You need to be 35 sitting in the office managing 20 other plumbers.
Mhm. Yeah, or whatever your particular whatever fits you best in terms of helping others to get into the field and be successful in
Sure,
the field. I mean,
sure.
it may not be sitting in the office. There are a lot of different
But
ways to
yeah,
manage.
yeah, that's more than what you're doing. Not necessarily
Right.
having to be in the field to make a living. So and that's something I believe TJ would have had, would have done. In fact, I had a very you know rough dream the morning of his. I woke up a very rough dream Sunday morning.
Mm,
Uh, it shows that the grieving process doesn't go away. I shared
mm,
this on Facebook, so I wasn't planning on sharing this tonight. But since we're here, let's do that.
okay.
Um, so I had a dream that it was very vivid, and it was at my house here. Justin, who never ever met TJ, Justin was in the dream. TJ and his wife and two kids. Now TJ
Ooh,
had no wife and had no kids, but in the
okay,
dream, they probably about 8 and 10 years old, what they would
okay.
appear to be. But they seem in the dream, all this seemed very normal.
Yeah.
So uh, it was amazing dream, and we were spending the day on his 35th birthday. We have a pond that we used to go fishing at, so we took the kids to the fishing pond, and he was a big Dragon Ball Z fan. So I had him, we were laughing because he had a Dragon Ball Z cake at 35 years of age. And in the dream, he still looked 14, if
Of
that makes
course,
any
yeah.
sense.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
That's the
But
way dreams work.
yeah. And so I never saw the face of his wife, but I saw the face of his kids, ironically. And they were
Really?
really cool little kids. And so we spent the entire day together, and they left. I hugged him, said happy birthday. Now, in the back of my mind, there's that, is this real? Because you're in a dream.
Right.
And so there's things jumping around. And so they leave, and then somehow I'm in bed. I don't remember actually going to bed in the dream. And so the morning of TJ, me getting the information at 6 a.m. on a Saturday morning that he had passed away, I had a certain ringtone on my phone that I'd since deleted. So that's the ringtone that woke me up. So in my dream, that ringtone started ringing.
Oh my.
And I started desperately trying to not listen to it. And I remember saying, I cannot wake up. I cannot wake. Do not wake up. Do not wake up. And I was fighting waking up, and I woke up. And for about 5 minutes, I had to experience all that over again.
Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
Oh, that's awful.
It was brutal. And it was like, wow, that was so powerful that, that's been, he passed away in 2014. So that's a lot. That's a lot to deal with. And so even after all that time, it was there. But I also look at the fact that in my dream, it was so happy. That part is I'm choosing the gift of the dream. And whatever weird, just in my mind or something even more in depth. I mean, I got to spend his 35th birthday with him in my mind. So that's what I'm choose to take from it. But that was brutal. And that just sort of goes to show I'll never get over it. I manage it, as you're saying. I choose what I focus on, but that one caught me off guard. That was a very vivid dream.
Absolutely. Well, it also occurs to me, it's an example of how, if we're willing to let the process work, and by letting it work, I mean, our job is to show up and allow ourselves to feel and just trust that it's all going to play itself out the way it needs to. A few things happen. This is something I just learned a few years ago. I was kind of amazed how you could have something really traumatic that you're feeling and that it could dissipate so quickly. I always thought that it wouldn't. And like so many people, I would stuff feelings because of that. I would block them off because I figured it was going to go on forever, or it was going to go on for hours and hours or whatever. When I finally learned that these experiences go away usually in minutes, they may return, but they go away in minutes. It's not an endless feeling of pain and agony. That gave me a different perspective on how to handle it, how to deal with them. It made it easier for me to do what you were talking about. It made it easier for me to allow the grieving process to happen, to allow the triggers to come up, because that's what that dream was. That dream was a trigger. And as a result of having that understanding that you can let the thing play out, it's not going to go on forever. It's just going to go on for a moment, and then you'll be through it. That also sets you up for what I think your mind was on some level was doing for you. It was building a new association. It was bringing you back to the trigger moment of the ringtone, but it was tying it to a very happy memory that basically came to you as a visitation experience rather than something that happened in the past. Your mind was building a new association on a trigger. That's a really fascinating thing. And the fact that you were able, because of all the previous work you've done to go through the grieving, to allow yourself to feel the emotions and so forth, you basically set yourself up to be able to benefit from that new association.
And I agree with that. And I also, other than the initial, shock of having to the reality of Sunday morning, it didn't take the day. It didn't take the morning even. It just took me. But I was quickly able to flip back, as you're saying, and viewed it as a chance to meet my grandkids in a weird way.
Yeah, right.
Never existed, And the dream made it seem so real, and the and even the interactions with the kids. I'm sitting there. We stopped at some store in the dream, and I just let the kids buy what they wanted to buy. His wife was going, "You shouldn't do that. You're spoiling them." Like, I don't care. We laugh. So it was this really cool thing, and I view it definitely positively. Just the moment of having to reunite, with this reality is it merged back into reality, and it was very painful for a few minutes, but it didn't take me out for the day.
And you also got, like you just said, you got the opportunity to not only meet your grandkids, you got the opportunity to spoil them, even though it pissed their mother off a little
Of
bit.
course.
But that's what a good grandfather gets to do. A grandfather gets to spoil the grandkids.
Yeah, and you know me, I would be ridiculous at that. So, so it was just this. But so I view it as a positive, and one day I really believe I'm going to go to sleep and I'm going to wake up, and that will be my reality at some point.
Wow.
Yeah,
Yeah. That's a cool reality too to wake
yeah,
up to.
yeah. That there's worse realities to wake up to than that one.
Oh
So
my
I
goodness.
believe. So I mean, it's a preview of what one day I will wake up to.
Yeah. That's almost something to look forward to in one sense. It's certainly that's one of the most fascinating things. We talked about this a lot actually when you were talking about the psilocybin experiences you've been through and what you learned about other people's psilocybin experiences. People who go through psilocybin um, come out with a different feeling, a different belief, a different outlook, frame of reference, where death is concerned, where spirit is concerned, where all that they start thinking about it all very differently in many cases from the way they used to. And the thing that's always fascinating to me is how similar all of their beliefs really are. I mean, they're all pretty much telling the same story.
That's what amazed me. One thing that my good experiences with the psilocybin. I had one bad experience, but
Right. We talked about that. Yeah.
yeah, that was terrible. But the other ones were all therapeutic and all reinforcing of everything I believe was reinforced as absolutely. It was not negotiable. It was just the reality. I had access to all the information in the world. I don't remember it all, but at the time I thought I would. The law of attraction and all that stuff was absolutely on display. In fact,
Mm,
it's sort of the point of the universe when you understand the law of attraction
mm,
and the energy can't die, the quantum side of things, and it is. That's what it taught me, and there was no doubt that that was real. And what I love about it is, as you mentioned, people that go that, and by the way, legal disclaimer, I'm not recommending this. This is not a legal thing you can do. One
right.
day it may be. I did it under the supervision of a therapist, so it is.
And you did it in a locale where it was legal.
Yeah, I went to a locale where it was legal. So all that being said, it's something that if you have the opportunity and a legal way to do it, it would be something to consider. So I found it very therapeutic, and the people that go through this all report the same thing. It reinforces like totally different backgrounds. I mean, we all end up with the same belief system after going through this
Which is
because
astonishing. I mean,
yeah,
trying to get
it,
human beings to agree on anything is like
yes,
trying to herd cats or something.
yeah,
And so to have them all come out with the same story, that's just like, what the
yeah,
hell?
yeah. I mean, the same, the positive energy, the sort of the answers to everything, the life. This is definitely after going through. I've always believed energy couldn't die, but once I understood completely that it was shown to me
Mm,
that I don't know where the energy goes. I don't. I mean, I don't think it's any specific place it goes because energy doesn't need to be in a place, but it's you have access to everything,
mhm.
and my belief system even goes further in that you not everybody does or has the wants to, but you also have I believe you can come back, not necessarily you know to Earth. There might be other places, but you can always come back. And the way I feel, it seems reinforced. I probably have been back 100 times.
Yeah, yeah. And I've had numerous guests here on the podcast. Um, People most of them I don't think I even interviewed with you, but I'm going to say on the order of 20 or 30 over the last 13 plus years who have been through experiences like this, who had either a near death experience or something very similar to it, where they ended up telling the story of what it was like, what or their best friend had the experience, whatever. It's the same story over and over and
Yes,
over again.
yes.
I mean, it continues to blow my mind how that plays out. So it kind of creates a sense of reassurance that regardless of what you may think of your own belief system, when you buy into a belief system like this one, it feels very real. That's one thing I always resisted about religion. Most religious beliefs to me felt fake. They felt, because a lot of them were self-contradictory and so forth. This one just feels real. I don't feel like I'm talking about spirituality as a metaphysics. I feel like I'm talking about just another version of physics.
Yeah, I that's why I think my deep dive into quantum physics is I think that is sort of the beginnings of, we don't have any clue, but I think that starts to touch on it when you
Mm,
understand quantum theory and
mm.
how things can be entangled, and energy, just the way it performs, and light behaves differently when it's observed. It's like, are you kidding me?
Yeah.
It's all that stuff out there. So uh the being able to, the traditional thing, and I'm not critical of anyone's religion, this is just where I got to, and a lot of people don't agree with me on this, but I think a religion in the beginning was created to control people. And
Mm.
there, and I do believe, like, Jesus was a great teacher, and he had a
Sure.
lot of information, if you read a lot of his works that have not been, that wasn't kicked out during the first council of Nicaea and
Yeah.
some of the
All
things.
right.
Yeah, he literally was a law of attraction teacher,
He was. Yeah.
and very much so. And so you look toward that, and you realize that this is a message that keeps repeating for beginning of time. The the amazing thing for me is, like, the Greek philosophers, the ancient Chinese, all these, we all, and the Native Americans that
Hmm.
never met,
Yeah.
and a lot of their beliefs got to the same place, and I find that fascinating. I really do. That they were talking about the same thing, thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of years apart, and coming up with the same. It's a fascinating study of how similar all this stuff is.
So tying back to our original topic, ready is not a feeling. I'm wondering if the commonality of these different experiences that get reported to us, and we've both heard them. I mean, numerous people have heard them, thousands of people, millions of people have heard these same kinds of stories. I wonder if that commonality feeds into an ability to accept things easier. Because
I, I,
that's at the essence of what we were talking about earlier. We're talking about, there's sometimes that you only have one choice, and
yeah,
you either do the choice or you don't. That's about it. You don't really have any other options to go on. But
right.
if you do take the choice, if you do feel it through, if you do experience it, it changes. Not only does it change you for the better, not only does it actually produce amazing results in the long run, but it also gives you a feeling of being ready, which is
Yeah.
bizarre. You weren't ready for it. You went through this thing that you're completely unready for. It makes you more ready the next time.
Well, and I think that's a great point. It's everybody that has been through these things and comes. I think and you use the key word, acceptance, accepting,
Mm,
getting to a place to just, I just accept, it is what it is. It
mm,
doesn't have any. I don't have to accept it. But what other option is there that makes any sense? Just acceptance, and understanding that this is a process. This is we don't know all this stuff. We don't know exactly know how this ends. But I do know that this version of me, this physical body, is going to wear out. But this inside of me, this feeling, I know it's, I just instinctively know it just goes on and on, and you get to share it and experience. And I'm one of these guys that just love the experience, and none of this scares me in any way.
mm,
I'm not scared of dying. I don't want to die, but I'm not scared of dying. And
mhm.
it's one of those things that I just know, whatever it is, I want to find fascinating along the way.
You touched on something. I'll make it the last thing to touch back to my experience with losing Joy, my cat, last week. Um, One of the questions I was trying to answer for myself, because when you're in the midst of trying to deal with that ultimate horrible decision of, do you help put him out of their misery? I didn't know how miserable he was because he can't talk to me.
Right.
I could gauge his behavior, but I can't tell what he's feeling necessarily. And that was torturing me because I didn't know how much is too much. Where's the line? That's literally the question that Louise was asking me when she was trying to help me come to a decision. Where's the line? At what point is it too far? At what point is it too much? And I couldn't answer the question. I literally told her, I don't know. I can't find it. Well, she actually helped me to get there, and that's another story. But my point is that that lack of clarity about where the line is ultimately leads us on journeys where we learn more about what the line is.
Yeah.
And the line is going to be a little bit different from case to case. In this case, I didn't know how much he was suffering. I didn't know. But what I did do is I reached out to friends. I let a lot of people know what was going on. One of the people I let know was co-host Jody Lynn Craven. And she as a favor to me, reached out to a friend of hers who has a friend who's a pet psychic. And literally I said, can you find out, get this pet psychic to find out, what does Joy want? What's he experiencing? What's he looking for? Literally, we made the decision. I made the decision with Louise's help. I made the decision 3 hours before we took him to the vet to be put to sleep. 1 hour after I made the decision, I got the feedback. It came back through Jody Lynn's friend, and she got it to me that basically said, he needs you to end this. That's where he's at right now. This is too much. He can't handle it anymore.
I believe he was hanging on for you and waiting for you to say, thank you, buddy. I believe that.
I think you're probably right.
Yeah. I had a pet that I had from when I was 3 until I was 18. And when he was having heart problems that, doctor, vet was like, he's 16-year-old dog. And he's having these heart attacks. And my dad, I was like, what else can we do? And my dad's like, well, whatever. He told the doctor, whatever. And he said, you need surgery? And the vet's like, who are you doing this for? And he said, I'm not going to operate on a 16-year-old dog and try to fix his heart. The incision and the healing would be just so miserable. And he used that term to me. Yeah, he said, we're waiting. He's waiting on you to be the family member he needs you to be. And my dad said, this is your dog and your decision. And at 18, I made that decision too.
That's a rough decision to make, but yeah. I get it. Yeah.
Yeah. And it was the right decision. It was, and it was, it was just one of those things that, I give my parents great credit. Dad said, whatever it costs. I mean, if you want to, we'll do whatever. And it made no sense. And the vet asking me the question, who am I doing for, was the greatest question, because it helped me understand that my dog, what an outstanding job my dog had done in my life. And being 3 to 18, saw absolutely everything, the wildest times and all. And it was a great memory. And just like in my belief system, one day I will see my animals again.
By the way, I did take advantage just before Joy passed to whisper something in his ear. Now, I have no idea how much he understands of what I tell him. I think he understands vibrationally. I don't think necessarily he understands the English language, but I don't know. I mean, there are times where I've kind of wondered, because he picked up on stuff really well. And I'm thinking, do you understand English? I don't get this. But nevertheless, I whispered in his ear, and I won't say exactly what I whispered, because I really do want it to be a secret.
Sure.
For a reason that will be obvious in a moment. I said, when it's my time, I want you to come and greet me. And I want you to give our password. And here's our password. And I gave him the password.
Nice.
Because that way, when it comes, and if he comes and is able to give me the password, then I'll know.
Yeah.
And I'll know for sure, yes, the whole connection did happen. Yes, it actually did play out the way I wanted it to. That's why I can't reveal what the password is.
Sure. Definitely.
I want to preserve the honesty and the truth of it.
Sure.
So if I get the password, then I know.
That's a cool idea. Yeah.
I don't even know why I thought to do that, but I literally thought to do that like right before he was put to sleep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it is never an easy thing, and you made the hardest decision you can make with a family member of, and it's you have my complete support, as you know. I value our friendship, and I'm sorry you're having to go through this, and I just don't have any words to really describe it, other than just keep doing what you're doing, and if you feel the emotion, experience the emotion. That's all you can do.
Thank you for that. And I will say, when I started the show today, I started by saying that today was intended to be my daily dose of happy because I really needed it today. We got there. So thank you. You've already given me that support just by helping me through this conversation, because I feel better just from having this conversation today. So thank you very much for that.
You're welcome.
And thank you to our podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.